Maggie's absent with notice. Good evening. Please turn off your cell phones. Welcome to the October 20th, 2021 regular meeting of the Eureka Springs Historic District Commission. I'm Dee Bright, Chairman, and I'll ask our Secretary, Steve Hollyfield, to do our roll call.
Steve Holfield, I'm President. Marty Kogan, President. Maggie Haight is absent with notice. Judy Holden. Randy Maddock. Present. And Kyle Palmer.
Present.
We have a quorum for business. The Eureka Springs Historic District Commission is empowered by the Eureka Springs Municipal Code to issue a certificate of appropriateness for alterations of exterior architectural features, demolition, and new construction within the boundaries of the Eureka Springs Historic District. The HDC uses Eureka Springs Historic District guidelines and the U.S. Department of Interior standards for the rehabilitation of historic buildings as the basis for decision. The Commission can take the following actions on an application: approval, approval with modification, denial, or defer for more information. Appeal of denial may be made to the Circuit Court. Public comments will be heard on each agenda item as it is called. Other public comments are best addressed to the City Council. Are there any changes or additions to tonight's agenda? I have one we need to, under new business, we need to add number 3 for Eureka Springs High School Arts Club. They have a request, and that paper's laying in part of your packet separate. So do I have a second to add that?
I second it.
I made the motion. Steve Hollifield seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed 5-0. And I believe, Steve, you have something you want to add to commission business?
I want to add discussion of our consent agenda procedures.
So that would be number, let's see, let's put it in 6 and move 6 down to 7 and 7 to 8. Do I have a second?
Second.
Steve Hollifield made the motion. Kyle Palmer, right? I'm sorry. I've got to get used to that. He's new. Made the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
I'd also like to add, someone in our last meeting suggested that we bring back public comments. I'd like to discuss that as well.
So that would be number, let's make that number 7, and scoot everything else down 1, okay? So 8 and 9. So do I have a second for that?
I'll second.
Okay, Steve Hollifield made the motion. Judy Holden seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Carries 5-0. Okay, anything else to be added to commission business? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented and or amended?
I move that we accept the agenda that's been presented and...
Steve?
Oh, it's not. Okay, I move that we accept the agenda as presented and amended, adding the 2 extra things.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Steve made the motion. Kyle made the second. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Carries 5-0. Okay, we have no old business. Under new business, we have number 1, level 2, 17 Breezy Point, addition of tiny house, 1 storage building and privacy fence. 2, level 3, 95 South Main, demo cabinet. And 3, Eureka Springs High School Arts Club. Do we have somebody present for 17 Breezy Point? If so, come up and to the mic and state your name and address, please.
Cecilia Athey, 17 Breezy Point.
Okay. Kylie?
The residence at 17 Breezy Point is a single-family home with plain traditional styling constructed circa 1940. The applicant is seeking a certificate of appropriateness for the addition of an 11 by 24-foot tiny house, the addition of a 10-foot by 16-foot metal storage building, a privacy fence of 190 feet in length and approximately 7 feet in height, and additionally, approval for copper standing seam metal roof on the main residence. In evaluating this request, staff makes the following findings of fact. This was actually brought to my attention by the code enforcement officer who had been in contact with the property owner. The roofing has already been installed. It does appear to be coppered color standing seam, which would be appropriate. Clarification on that roofing material is needed from the applicant. The metal storage building is of typical design and not located near the main residence. Guidelines do recommend that ancillary structures should be located where such a structure would have been historically. But as you saw, if you went to this property, it's in a very unique location, and that the property is divided by the public street. So that property's unique orientation and the location at the end of Breezy Point should be considered. Similarly, the metal tiny house is located away from the main residence, and again, the property's unique layout should be considered. The tiny house is clad in hardy board siding and has a metal roof. Staff recommends approval of this agenda item, and I am going to follow up with the building official to ensure that appropriate setback requirements have been met.
Do I have a motion so we can discuss?
I move that the Historic District Commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the work at 17 Breezy Point as proposed.
Second.
Judy made the motion, Steve seconded. Now we can have discussion. Any questions? Well, we need to clarify that your roof is metal standing seam, is it?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
It looks like it by the picture.
Yeah, in the picture it looked. I just wanted to verify. Any other questions for the applicant?
Is there anybody else here to talk about this property?
No, there isn't.
No, in the audience, if there was.
I mean, like your neighbors, anybody here?
No. I only have one neighbor, and they aren't even here most of the time.
Oh, okay.
Okay, does any of the others,
When you ask about the roof, you're asking about the main,
the copper roof, if it's a standing?
main house.
Well, that's
Well-
on the tiny,
This tiny house here.
on the tiny house, not on the main house.
Yeah, this one, picture right there. It looks like, and it's hard to tell with the pictures, but it looks like it's standing seam.
That's what they told me when I bought it, so.
There's a couple different names, that's why it gets very confusing. Snap lock, there's several different names.
Any other questions of her?
What is I see that the privacy fence is, the maximum is going to be 7 feet high?
Yes, ma'am.
And what's the fence going to be made of?
It's a pine, a treated pine.
Any other discussion?
boundary, so, but, it's been a while since I've looked at this, so, but the fence covers what area?
We have a tiny triangle on the opposite side of Breezy Point Road that belongs to us. And due to issues with our neighbor, we had to put the fence up, but we are the recommended 2 feet off the property line onto ours.
Is that the only place where the fence is?
Yes, sir.
On that other piece?
If I'd had my druthers, we wouldn't have it at all, but I had issues with the neighbor.
And Randy, that's item 1, page 5 of the packet. You can see the site plan there.
Okay. I was trying to go by the purple line, but I was reading too much into
And I did have the surveyor come back out and make sure I put it exactly 2 feet off the property line.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, discussion? Let's see, Judy made the motion, Steve seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. In just a moment, Steve's going to get your C of A for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, our next is 95 South Main. Do we have people here to speak on that?
Hello, I'm Jeff Danos. I'm the director of the Eureka Springs Historical Museum.
And this is for the demo of the cabin.
Yes, ma'am.
Kylie?
The log cabin adjacent to the Historical Museum is not a contributing structure. It is a 1999 replica of the Call cabin from Mill Hollow, itself an assemblage of random logs from various ages and sources. The cabin is not eligible for historic preservation grants since it's not in its original location, and 36 of the approximate 42 logs were new when it was relocated. It has very little in common with the original 1850 cedar house that the Call's cabin was meant to memorialize, since it was substantially downsized and constructed primarily of peeled round logs instead of the traditional square-hewn cedar logs. On a recent site visit, I was only able to locate 2 square logs used in this construction that could possibly be 19th century originals. The applicant is seeking a certificate of appropriateness to demolish this cabin. In evaluating this request, staff makes the following findings of fact: that the property in its present state is a public safety issue. The overall historic and architectural integrity of the cabin is minimal due to an overall lack of original material and extensive damage and decay. At my site visit, I noted extensive water damage to the first run of logs, roof, rafters, and flooring. Upwards of 90% of the logs show evidence of major wood-boring insect damage. The log chinking is failing and pulling away from the structure. It's my professional opinion that the cabin does not retain enough integrity of materials to repair. A repair at this point would be cost prohibitive, especially considering the overall lack of integrity of materials and design that impact the cabin's availability to convey its significance. Staff recommends approval of this agenda item.
Do I have a motion so we can discuss?
I move that the Historic District Commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the demolition of the cabin at 95 South Main Street as proposed.
Second.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to make any remarks on this? Okay, Jeff. Do you have anything else you want to
Not really.
say to us?
No, I mean, obviously, I've only been at the museum for about 6 months.
Yeah.
But I did as much research as I could, and I believe I presented, I hope you all got a copy of some of the
Yes.
information that I found.
Yeah, we all have a copy.
Yeah, as I stated in that paperwork, I don't think anybody's happy about this situation. It's unfortunate that it's come this far, and it just sounds like this is the only option for us. And moving forward, in order for us to do anything, every person we've spoken to says it needs to come down first. So that's why we're here.
Do you guys have any discussion or questions?
I just a comment. I'm unhappy too, but I drove by there shortly. I know we were going to share a little information. You were going to show me a little bit more about this and never got to it. But when I saw what had happened to it, I just thought, oh gosh, this is, because I would have bent over backwards to make something out of that. And I guess the only question that I would raise is, correct me if I'm wrong, do I remember you saying that there might be something that can be salvaged out of that in the way like the chimney and the fireplace, that somehow when some sort of vision, for something in the future, we can actually do it is it worth saving that? Is that salvageable, and what's your opinion about whether that part of it should be saved?
Well, we've kicked around a lot of different ideas, and then in discussing with a few people about the procedure, I guess, of tearing it down, essentially, they basically said they cannot guarantee the integrity of anything as they're pulling it down because they're unsure of how it was constructed. One of the men I spoke with said he didn't know if they spiked the logs together in any way when they were stacking them. So it's, yeah, I guess right now we just don't know. I mean, my hope would be that something would still be standing, but,
But if the cabin is only a replica cabin, which I presumed that it was moved from Mill Hollow, but in this historical timeline, you're saying the actual Mill Hollow cabin was demolished, and this is a brand-new construction from 1999?
well, there's a few logs that I understand were not brand-new logs.
It was moved, but most of the logs had to be redone because of termite damage and things.
Right.
I don't know if you have the notebook that Georgette Gardner made. She said she gave you the museum all of that notebook, so all of that's in there.
But my question is the chimney historical, or was that constructed in 1999?
That I'm not sure of. I mean, it looks to be like it's similar to the pictures from the one from the Mill
Right.
Hollow cabin. So I don't know if I didn't find any paperwork that said that they physically picked up, each stone from Mill Hollow and reassembled it in the same place, in the same position as in the new cabin. In regards to the binder, so we have 2 very thick binders that I reviewed, as well as several other folders. I don't know if one of those was from
That was
from
probably
Georgette, but
Yeah.
I mean that's where I got all the information that I could get.
And that was already started before I moved here, so I don't remember. From 2002 on, I remember, but,
Yeah, well, it's my understanding that, the plan was to relocate the cabin.
Yeah.
But that as they were taking it down, they discovered that most of the logs were not in.
Yeah, I think
in
there
the
was,
right
from
condition.
talking to Georgette, I think there was a lot of termite damage originally, and so I think what you and Kylie have said, a lot of those logs and all were replaced and new. Go
A
ahead.
lot of the damage was caused because the issue of the water coming down from above was not addressed.
Correct.
That was incorrectly done. And I don't understand, I mean, if something is rebuilt in that site, the first thing that has to be done is you have to redirect the water flow.
Exactly, yeah, because the last thing that, that we needed would be to rebuild something and then every 15 years
Right,
have to go in
because
and,
that would-
and fix it. And that's, going through the notes, that's what I discovered was that
Yeah.
within
I mean,
less than
a cabin
15 years,
built
they had already
20
noted
years
some of the
ago
logs were
should not
rotting.
have deteriorated to that point if the water flow had been addressed back then.
Right. Well, there was a note in there too about the cabin in Mill Hollow was situated right next to a
Right.
hillside, and that the location at the museum was considered identical terrain. So it doesn't. It wasn't a good idea. It sounds like to have it adjacent to the rock bluffs.
Does anybody else have any comments?
Just one, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't know how to quantify this or stipulate it or even articulate it, but I guess I'll just put it out there as like, what would it take when this thing's, were to start to come down for you to say, hey, we can save this chimney. It looks like it's, and got enough integrity to where something, like it's of value that something can be done of it. And I just kind of assumed that you in your role would look for that opportunity if it...
Well, for sure, yeah. And I already had, I had a message. I spoke with Glenna Booth a little bit about it through email, because she had come up with an idea that, if the chimney was still standing, if it could be saved, that one of the things we might be able to do would be to put some sort of a, it wouldn't be a historical marker, I guess, but some sort of an informational marker that talks about Cora Pinkley Call and maybe the project itself and, the writers and the artists of the 30s through the 50s, since that's kind of what this was an homage to, I believe.
Like a wayfinding sign.
Something, yeah. I mean, and then the other thing, too, that we need to discuss with the board is also just the museum's plans for the future as well, and for that site. And I don't know if that's something that's been reviewed recently, but obviously, whatever ends up being placed there, we need to think about, is it the perfect place for whatever it is that we're putting there, or is it, not a good idea? So,
Is there a metal flue inside the chimney to direct the flames? Or it's just stone?
I don't know. I haven't actually been inside the cabin ever since the door was kicked in. The door was covered up with a sheet of like plywood or OSB, so I haven't taken down unscrewed that plywood to get in there, but I really don't know if there's a metal flue inside the chimney or not.
I don't believe there is, if that makes any difference.
But there's no history of
With
how
the,
they reconstructed.
the Preservation Society, we did have the cabin on the tour of homes one year. We just took a fake fireplace and put inside because there was no way to have a fire or anything, so I don't think there was, but I could be wrong.
So the chimney is decorative,
I think so,
so there's no point in saving.
from my memory,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to be 100%, but from my memory, I don't think there is. It's been a few years.
Okay.
Any other questions? Judy made the motion, Steve seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And I know the museum's not happy about it. We're not happy, but
Yeah. Well, I
it's really
appreciate
bad right now, so.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
I drove down the street last Thursday before I got this, and I said, oh, that needs to come down. So it's bad.
Sad.
It's
sad
just
thing.
Sad, yes.
not maintained.
It is. Okay, oh, our third one's not in our packet because we just added. Okay, so Eureka Springs High School Arts Club, is there anybody here? Is that you, Sandy?
It is.
Want to state your name and address?
Sandy Martin, Eureka Springs. I'm chairman of the Eureka Springs Arts Council. And you've got a paper with our request for modification on it. Jessica Cummings, the art teacher and one of the students, had intended to be here with me, but they were just diagnosed with COVID. So they are out of school and out of commission for a little bit. So that alters one of the dates for the painting. As you probably know, for the last 8 years, the Arts Council has done at least one project a year with the Arts Club. We think it's important that they get an opportunity to demonstrate their artistic ability, collaborate and do something and contribute to the community, which has worked out extremely well. This project was a storm drain mural project. 2 of them were completed. We learned a lesson that it is not a good idea to paint on the streets of Eureka Springs. They got ripped up partly because of bad surface, greatly due to the bad winter we had, and the wear and tear just ripped them up like crazy. So after a discussion with Jessica about what to do to move forward to make sure that we retain that grant for them, we got a $4,000 grant from the Arkansas Arts Council. $3,780 of that goes directly to the Arts Club, Film Club, Environmental Club, and the Photography Club, who are all working together to paint them, to write some environmental messaging for a brochure, and the Film Department and Photography Department are doing a mini documentary on it. So we want to do everything we can to make sure that we keep that grant in place for them. If we don't deliver it, we have to return all the money. So what we're requesting is that we don't do storm drains or anything like that, but the manhole covers, and we've taken shots of about 8 options. We need to do 6 to complete the project. There are 8 locations through Spring and North Main that we've kind of identified. They're the round manholes. The paint is specifically designed for the iron. They're coated, and it also has a non-skid coat on top of it, like we have done on other projects that we've done outdoors. So that is our request, to be able to switch the project and complete the project. Probably now, with them having COVID, it's probably going to be early November when they can prep it and get them painted. They think it'll take 2 days.
Okay. Do I have a motion that we can discuss? And this isn't in your packet, so we'll have to go back to the old way.
Have to wing it.
Yep.
I move the Historic District Commission issue a certificate of appropriateness to the Arts Council for the drain hole covers project.
Manhole covers?
Manhole covers project, 6 in total.
6.
Second.
Okay. Steve made the motion. Kyle made the second. Is there any questions of Sandy?
Yeah, I think we've had people really like these projects, and I really like the projects, but the issue is the maintenance of them. Are they going to go away at some point, or this plan where someone come in and erase all the paint, or are they going to be updated every year, 2 years, so they're not just fading away and looking like someone forgot about them at some point?
Yes, that's an issue. Maintenance is an issue. And the Arts Council just deals with the public property, when we do the arts projects on the public property. And in 2014, I believe, and I think Kylie has a copy of this, we established policies and procedures that were done with the HDC, the city, Public Works, everybody, CAPC, to make sure that we had policies and procedures. Our policy is to review the projects every 2 years. For example, it was just completed a couple of days ago. The music park has all been revamped. If you remember, the Stork was either pulled down or fell down or something, and Public Works is responsible for that. Transit, and they had that repaired. So we reviewed that, and on the rainbow stairs, we had those redone. So our standard policy is to review it every 2 years if it's beyond repair, or if it is deemed that it's inappropriate now, or if something changes, then that process goes into removing it.
Okay.
And what would that look like? And I ask because, in a way, sometimes art is meant to be there for a while, and then it's meant to disappear. And clearly, that's not what you wanted to happen so quickly with the drain covers. But I guess I'm sort of wondering, has it been considered that these would be implemented for the express purpose of them lasting for a couple of years and then being removed like an installation would be? And that's why I ask, how would you remove something if it was beyond repair, and why not decide when you would remove it if it's going to be removed at a certain point, so it's a conscious?
Well, the process and procedures that we have build in a permanent installation, using the materials for a permanent installation. Sometimes some of that is out of our control. The storm drains were done per street painting paint. They were, scraped and surfaced and coated and all that stuff. It just did not work. So that has to be removed. We've power washed most of it, but it's got to be cleaned a little bit more. So they are designed. Our intent is to have them to be permanent, but I don't know how you guarantee that. So that's why we put the review process in. Example, the art wall that's down on Front Street, we took great care in making sure that those weren't on, they were on aluminum composite board so that they wouldn't buckle or warp or anything else. The old standard was MDO board, and it didn't hold up more than 3 years. This is supposed to hold up for 5 years. It's been up there for 6 now, and it still looks pretty good. So we try to upgrade as new materials come available in paint. So the intent is to make them as permanent as possible. But again, if they don't, we want to make sure that we can remove them.
But ongoing, you consider that
Yes.
as, yeah.
But isn't the definition of an installation
I'm sorry, I
I'm
can't
sorry.
hear you and your mic's not on.
impermanent? If it's an installation, it's meant to be removed.
She's
I can
asking,
anticipate
isn't the intent of an installation to be temporary? That's what you're asking, right? What are you trying to say?
I'm sorry.
Clarify what you're trying to say.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you or not understanding you. I'm hearing, but I don't.
If the question is temporary versus permanent,
and
because I can't hear you and your mic's
Okay.
off, and I
No, her
understand.
mic's on. She has,
Okay.
To my thinking, an installation is not meant to be permanent.
Well, we have calls for artists for temporary and for permanent art. For example, the sculptures we're working on the Harmon Park Art Trail, those are intended to be permanent. There are others that are meant to be temporary. But, mostly when we do something like sculptures or art walls or something, we want them to last as long as possible. That's why we put the review process in, because even if the intent is for permanent, they may not hold up.
do we have anybody in the audience that wants to speak on this subject? Okay. Just state your name and,
This is Jeff Downos again. I wasn't planning on saying anything, but I think this sounds great, so I just want to say that.
thanks.
He's my friend.
Any other comments, or? Okay, Steve made the motion, Kyle seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much, and the
Thank
students
you.
appreciate it.
And Sandy, I will email you a certificate of appropriateness.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. We have no consent agenda items tonight. Administrative approvals are all on the agenda, so we're not reading those any longer. Commissioner business. Approval of minutes from October 6, 2021.
I move we approve the minutes from the October 6, 2021 HDC meeting.
Second.
Steve made the motion, Judy seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Treasurer's report for September, and our treasurer's ill this evening, so I'm going to just read this for Maggie. Our interest paid this month was 73 cents. We have $8,834.88 in that account. So, would somebody make a motion to accept that?
I move we accept the treasurer's report for September 2021.
Second.
Steve made the motion, Randy seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Discussion of vote justification is our next thing under Commissioner business. Do you want?
Yeah, I can kind of introduce it, and then I think
Okay.
it'd be good if you can fill in any blanks that I leave. So one question that has been brought up from community members is they want some clarification on, particularly when a project is denied, that each commissioner provide a justification for voting no. And you all can decide what that process would look like to verbalize that, whether it's done with your no vote or after the vote is complete, kind of go back down the line and justify why that decision was made. From my perspective, it kind of makes sense to do that in case it's not clear to the applicant, or if this does go to appeal and goes to court, that there's a clear record of what the justification for denial was.
I would suggest that we, not just no votes, but all votes.
Okay,
Just to say, I voted yes on this because, I voted no on this because. If it's a controversial application, and it looks complicated, and it looks like it's something that we may have to defend in court, I mean, we as a city, then I think all of us saying, this is why we voted this way. And I think also it takes less pressure off people who vote no on it, I think.
So you think we should do it as we vote? Is that what I?
No, I think we should do it after, in case that would influence somebody. I know we did this once in the past with Glenna, and Steve and I both just remember it was something controversial. We don't remember what we were talking about. But afterwards, she came back, and it surprised us all, but we had to, at the table, tell why we voted no. We didn't say why we voted yes, but why we voted no.
And why is
Dee, has this ever happened before in the last 40 years? At the
Yeah, on
HDC?
Glenna, just, I know we were sitting out front.
No, I meant daily, like every meeting. Was this ever done at HDC at every meeting in a previous?
No, that's the only time I remember ever. And I know I was sitting at the end table. I know exactly where I was sitting, but I don't know the subject.
No, what I'm getting at, though, I'm sorry if I'm not making myself clear, is that if in 40 years we've never had to do this, we are going to be doing this
Well-
with every single vote that we make?
No, not every single, right?
Well, when do we make the distinction?
Just on a very controversial.
But who determines what's controversial?
I think if it were to go to a roll call vote,
Yeah.
that is when it would trigger the justification.
So then you're saying every time if somebody disagrees, we have to give our justification every meeting, every vote if we say no?
If it's controversial and it's a roll call vote, I
Who's
think
deciding whether it's controversial?
the chair decides.
I
if
have
it's-
taken more roll call votes in this year and a half that I've been chair than ever before.
And why is that? What's causing all this problems?
You guys all voted no on something, and it was obvious I needed to make it very clear for Ann, who isn't here, to take the minutes, so she needs to know who votes how. So I'm just like, oh, we need a roll call on that subject just to keep the voting clear.
But why do we have to say why?
That's what we're discussing is, but if you say no, you should justify why you're doing it. Kylie has to write a letter to the applicant. Sometimes she doesn't understand what to say to the applicant, why we turned them down. Randy?
I assumed that we all vote yes or no from an informed and from a perspective that we would be able to say, and this is why I did it. I don't know that we should necessarily every time. I think we might be setting ourselves up to giving too much information that doesn't need to be given, but I would potentially think that there's somewhere in the middle that might look something like this, and that is that an applicant that is denied has 48 hours to request some detail behind that, in which case we are then put on notice that we need to explain that. So only when we are
And
specifically
that's really what Kylie's wanting us to discuss it and just make a decision like, that's something, that's an idea. I mean,
It appears to me that it's becoming an issue of trust.
is trust of whom, by
Of the
who?
commissioners' opinions
Yeah.
or their voting.
we're just discussing this and
And the determinant of controversial,
Yeah.
that seems a little bit lame to me to say that.
But I guess I don't mind explaining.
I don't mind either, but I'm just saying, in general, it appears to me that the commissioners are not trusted enough
Yeah.
to vote correctly the first time, so you have to query them.
Then you might end up having people, if we have to tell you might, I'm not saying, I'm just thinking in the broad sense, not that you might have voters saying present, you might having people say, I recluse myself, others will not vote no because of it, because of the public demanding that we have to say different things. I'm just wondering, it can cause a lot of, if we haven't done it in 40 years, why is it all of a sudden now?
We have
Just
done
We
wanna-
have done it.
Pardon me?
We have done it.
We've done it sitting right out there when
I'm
Glenna,
understanding that this is going to be done every time we vote,
no, not every time we vote.
but the ones that, who decides that are controversial?
That's my question.
When a vote gets so complicated that they request a roll call, in other words, instead of saying, say aye, everybody says aye, aye, aye. Say, okay, Judy, what do you vote? Aye. Aye,
Yeah.
no. And then if
When we-
it calls that roll call, that means we're getting clarification to make sure we know who said what, how voted what. Then I say, after that vote, then on those roll call votes to say, just please state why you voted the way you did for the record. So
So
If the-
why has this reared its ugly head at this moment in time?
Well, I can go back to, just throw this out, because most of you weren't on the, none of you were on the commission but me. The cell tower was something that was extremely controversial in town.
I remember that.
And at that time, we didn't, it won. I mean, the yeses outdid the other, but we did not go back and ask. And we had, lots of people in the well, we weren't in the auditorium at that time, but we didn't do it then. And I wished I could remember the subject the night that it did happen, but I'm sorry, I don't.
Well, it happened just a couple of weeks ago,
That's
where
right.
an applicant specifically asked.
Yeah, but we didn't.
That's right, we did not answer
Yeah.
that question for,
Yeah, we've
we
had
a lot of-
two recently that were
Yeah.
denied.
Yeah, and I guess the question in my mind is, does the applicant not deserve, but do we owe the applicant an explanation of why?
I'd say yes.
Yes.
Yes. It's like-
I agree. I think that if I'm not able to support an application, and I know we'll get into some of the ex parte stuff a little bit later, but I think a candidate should be able to understand, I mean, yes, they have the guidelines, yes, they can read them, yes, they can interpret them, but it's a little bit more nuanced than that, and I think that if a candidate either fails or is not going to succeed, that if they ought to be able to get as much information as they need, both beforehand and after, but I don't want to put us in a liability situation. I think it should be only if they, not, I voted yes and here's why, but the applicant says, hey, y'all voted no, tell me why in retrospect. But you understand what I'm saying here is that I think that applicants sometimes need more information than they could just get from the paperwork.
Well, I think it's only fair to the applicants when they apply for an application and they get denied, they understand why they're denied. To walk away and go, well, I had 4 no votes, that's all I know.
Isn't that the job?
But we do have a lot of discussion ahead of time. Usually if it's really controversial, we have a lot of discussion. I mean,
The way
I
I
knew-
discussed that won't indicate how I'm going to vote, though. It's like, I ask questions.
well,
I'm not saying I'm,
but I think maybe Randy had a good idea, maybe, within 48 hours or something, if,
how would that be communicated?
well, would we just send it over? We could, one way, just send it to Kylie, why we voted no. If you don't want to, then
Well,
she'd have it for the record.
At first, the onus is on the applicant to request the information, I would say.
Yeah,
That the
I
applicant
agree with
has
that.
48, 72 hours, whatever, to request it, and then we'll get it back to them within before the next meeting or something like that.
Well, as it stands now, when an applicant is denied, he does have the right to come back and reapply. So this whole discussion is kind of moot. as far
But if
as
he's
that.
reapplying and doesn't know why he got turned down.
Exactly. And I think
he
that's
reapply?
kind of what is spurring this is, hey, my project was denied. I don't quite understand why. I want to understand why and what the commission expects of me. So when I revise this and bring it back to the table, it's going to be
Yeah.
good to go.
Or in another case, that the guidelines say this, the application needs to communicate that you are aligning with this. Your application does not do that. I cannot support your application until it does that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, could we do like that at the end, let's just say 2 weeks ago when the vote went basically no, then do we stop right then and in general say why we might have turned him down or what we could suggest of doing
I
to
think
fix it?
That's a really important question, and I think it's a very tricky one, too.
Yeah.
Because in one case, it wasn't that the project was problematic. It was, in my opinion, that the application did not communicate enough about what the project was going to do to where I could decide whether it conformed or not. Now, in the very same breath, there was an application that I couldn't support because, for a bunch of reasons, and I would not have wanted to get into an explanation of all of the issues, and some of them that were not even directly project related, but were more procedural, that like, this is the way we do business. This is, so on one of those situations, I could have been very clear and succinct. On the other one, it would have been very difficult, I think, to give a defensible, satisfactory, and complete answer at the time.
I can see that. Well,
I think for the spirit of transparency, knowing why we vote on why we vote the way we vote, it tells everybody why we're doing it. I mean, if our mayor has to defend us and say, well, the commission voted this way because I don't know, because all I know is they voted 4-3, instead of saying, well, I read in the notes three of the commissioners said there's a point about the guidelines and blah, 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 blah. So it gives more transparency of why we're doing what we're doing and why we're doing it, so.
but I can see what Judy's saying too, where because then it would come down to almost more than controversial, it's everything we vote on, and that,
I think if an applicant says, I'd like to know why, can you go with each commissioner? I don't think that'd take very long.
Based on the 2 weeks ago vote, that person changed a contributing house to non-contributing house, so the authenticity of that particular house was destroyed by his willy-nilly redesign of the...
so, well, should we just think about this and give Kylie your thoughts? Just kind of,
Well, I don't know if I want to make a motion out of this, but to have a concrete procedural motion that we could say, that we could discuss as a motion. Like, if I were going to make one up right now, I would say that in the event that we turn down an application, that the applicant has 72 hours to officially and formally request through Kylie explanation by the commissioners as to why they voted the way that they did. Otherwise, then the votes stand yes or no, however they have passed or not.
I think the vote stands no matter what, right? It's not.
right.
But without
that
explanation
changes.
is what I'm getting at, yeah.
But also, I think the chair, I'd be fine with the chair having the discretion, like doing a roll call vote, saying, okay, I'd like a roll call vote, and I also like to get a justification on each vote.
And that could be
Let the chair make that call.
it could be an option to have either, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I asked for a roll call just because more for Ann, how it's voted, and I just think in something that's real controversial, I think we should know how each person is in case we do go to court or something. That's why I do a roll call. If I think it's really important, that's why I will call for a roll call. And I know Steve did a few times when he was chair. I mean, sometimes it's just kind of
But I
dotting
think-
our i's and crossing our t's.
This thing is, to me, is a form of transparency to say, the rumors go around, well, Steve voted this way because he likes so-and-so.
Yeah.
Instead of that,
Well,
I'm just telling you exactly why I voted yes or no on this application. And that kind of takes away a lot of the mystery of good old boy system, you're friends with this is your neighbor, you don't want to make him mad. I'm stating why I voted
Yeah.
black and white right here.
Yeah.
Well, and if they're your neighbor and you really, maybe that's one that you,
I know.
Recuse.
recuse
Yeah.
on because you've got a vested,
But you know what I mean? People
Yeah.
say, people in town are like, they get much better treatment from HCC than people in town who are not like. And this would kind of do away with some of that by saying, well, we voted the way we voted for this reason.
So are you going to write this up in a motion?
I
Well,
would
do
think,
you want to
let's
do
think
it
about it.
now, or do you want to think about
and
it?
put it on
Bring
the agenda next.
Bring it next time.
Okay, yeah, because I think this is something really important. It's just, I think we should all think about it and do maybe a little research. Is that okay, Kylie?
That's fine.
Okay. And then discussion on COA extensions. I know when on the application it says, let's see, we don't have an applicant, right? Do we have one? It says what, to 1 year? And then they can have 6 months? Isn't that what's stated on it, Kylie?
Yes, so the certificate of appropriateness is valid for 1 year. After that point, I can administratively approve a 6-month extension. But the question has come up about, okay, well, what happens after 6 months if they haven't done it? There have been a couple projects in town that have had multiple extensions.
Yeah, for
How,
years.
how do you want that to be handled moving forward?
How is it presently being done?
I mean, I haven't been able to do 2 6-month extensions. I would do one, and at the end of that 6 month, if your project isn't done, you should reappear and.
Start over, square one.
I agree.
Okay.
Because like one that's been on the books for many years, and I remember way back, we voted, the commissioners at that time voted to no more extensions on that. Well, then we had a whole new thing, and they made, stated this and that, and somebody made a motion that, oh, they're ill, then they can, let's extend it. Well, but they didn't know the history, and here we are, how many more years later, it's still, and I think, yeah, they have a whole year. Kylie can give them one extension for 6 more months, that's 1.5 years, and then come back to us, I think.
It doesn't mean that they're going to get turned down the next
No,
time. It just means
no.
we're starting with exactly the same information we had before.
And kind of maybe like, okay, can you be done in 3 months or something? Maybe we put a deadline to it, or at least try.
Yeah.
Is there a way we can be made aware on the new business that it is an application that's asking for,
Oh, reconsideration. Yeah.
reconsideration?
Well, no, Kylie does,
She does that.
see,
No, reconsideration, as if it's rolled off, it's
Oh, yeah.
expired, and so it's being brought to us.
yeah.
For the new members, and anytime there's new commissioners, et cetera, they might not have known.
Yeah,
Right.
I'll include that in the staff report.
Yeah.
Okay.
But couldn't a fine be imposed? I mean, we don't have the authority as the HDC to impose a fine.
That would be,
But
that's
that would
the
be
building
The building
inspector.
inspector. If he would impose a fine, that would give them some incentive to complete the job
And-
within the.
And on another, on the one I'm thinking of, and then another one, he has gone out of his way to track these people. They don't live here, neither one of the two that come to my mind. And he has worked and worked at getting these and tracking them down and trying to serve them papers and all. So I don't know. I mean, kind of goes out of our hand, and I do know.
That is out of our hand, but
Yeah. So on the discussion of the Cfa extensions, if we want to do that after Kylie gives them 6 months, and then if they don't have it finished, then come back to us, we need to make that into a motion.
I move that when COAs have expired after 12 months, Kylie can administer an extension for 6 months, and if the project has not been implemented by the end of 6 months, the COA is fully expired, and the applicant can reapply with a brand-new application for the same project as they want to.
Second.
But that kind of says they can do what they want. They have a year and a half to complete the project. If they don't complete it, so what?
Then they come back to us,
They come
He's
back.
made a motion.
and then
He
we,
made a motion.
If they choose to
He's
come
made a
back.
motion.
yeah. But we can discuss.
We can?
Yeah, after, there's discussion after the motion and the second.
Okay.
So we're in discussion now. So they come back to us, let's say their year and a half's gone, they come back, and then we can say, listening to them, what their problem was, why they're not, and then we can make the decision, okay, we'll give you 6 more months, we'll give you 3 months, 4 months, whatever we think. We could put the deadline. It wouldn't just completely extending.
Would you suggest also, Dee, that maybe we also give them a consequence?
That's what I'm saying, a fine.
Well, then that's something,
But we don't have the authorization
Well-
to do that.
we do at one time, we talked about it, and I think it's something up to $100. We'd have to get back with Bobby Ray, the building official, and he has to do it. So that's something, we had asked him to come talk to us once at a meeting, and then things came up, and then we went into COVID, and we never got that finished.
I think after you agree on a timeline, whether that's for fixing an issue or a COA extension, after you establish that timeline and everybody agrees on that, then Bobby can begin issuing citations after that period has elapsed.
The year and the 6 months?
Or whatever, if you give them 3 months after that, and that 3 months has passed, then they can't do more work.
But we're all assuming that they're going to be at the meeting, the first meeting after the 6 months extension was already given by you. What if they're just not in town and we can't? Do you see what I'm getting? When does the, I'll use the word again, consequences start?
Well, after the 6 months, then they don't have a C of A any longer. So then Bobby would go to them, and if they keep working, he could go to them and put a stop work order or whatever he deems best.
Yeah.
And tell them they need to come back to us.
It's not clear to me that the what-ifs we're asking are different from other what-ifs that could potentially apply. I mean, you either have your COA or you don't. It's either still valid or it's not.
Like a driver's license?
And the consequences are the same if you don't have it, whether you don't happen to be here, or if your work is partly finished or whatever. I'm not trying to oversimplify, but I'm trying to make it a little bit more black and white, I guess.
Well, I just don't think, I think what we're saying is once their year's up and they get one extension, they can't just come back to Kylie and get another extension for 6 more months and 6 more months and
It's a
6 more months.
reapplication.
Yes. That's what we're putting an end to.
That's the motion as I intend.
Yes, yes. We're stopping it after
So a
the
year and a
first
half,
time.
they have to
Year and a
start all
half.
over again. Which I think is very reasonable.
I think that's what we're saying. That's what we're going to vote on, correct?
Now, is this also including the past ones that have expired? So you're saying that
Yeah, this is.
Right.
Say the
Well,
10 of them, let's pick a number, 10 to 25, whatever. Now we can get some action going and consequences being done to these people finally? Good.
Effective immediately. I mean,
Yeah,
you
effective
either have a COA that's in effect, you have an extension that Kylie has given to you, or you don't.
Okay.
And wherever you find yourself tomorrow morning is where you are.
Now, do these people have to be given notice, and that's what we're voting before they're getting the consequence, whatever it may be?
Well, if their COA has expired,
Yes.
when they come back to work, they have to go back to Kylie anyway, so Kylie just won't give them another 6 months. They'll have to come back to us if we vote yes on this.
And what happens in between that now?
She just informed them that it's changed, that she can't get it.
The law now says,
It's not a law.
It's a
well,
guideline.
Our guideline.
I retract that.
On the 11th commandment.
Like, nothing's,
Ooh, that's going to come back to bite me, I'm
If-
afraid.
if COA has expired.
Well, I think this will give,
No, it expired, and they say, "Phew," and they continue doing the work.
then the building inspector can go and stop.
And then what?
They get cited.
They
and
get cited then,
If they continue, then they could be a work.
and
stop.
fined
And then we
and
could
so
go through,
forth.
and then we
Yes, it really
continue the
has.
process that we would go through in any other unauthorized situation.
Right.
So it's not a new process, I don't think. It's
No.
just that it reverts to that.
just the process has never been processed.
Right, we're
long
just
time.
giving it a little bit of teeth, maybe.
Maybe.
That's what we're hoping, let's say. We're hoping some teeth to it.
I know there's one area where every time it rains, the city comes and puts up cones because rocks keep falling onto the street. And that is no solution to me. And that's not a consequence to the owner of the property.
So Randy made the motion, and Steve made the second. So all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? So motion carries 5-0. Our next, okay, now we added reading discussion.
No, reading and
Okay,
discussion.
reading and discussion of mayor's note, re ex parte communication. Did everyone read, everybody receive this?
Email.
Yes, it's been a while. Let's see, what was the date on that?
So who did it? Is that you, Marty?
Sorry?
Was it you? Did it?
So, do you understand what the mayor's saying here? Do you have questions, thoughts?
Well, my comment is that I don't believe the example he cited is germane to the HDC. It appears to me to be strictly a legal matter between a judge and attorneys in a court case. I don't know if anybody else feels that way or not. And noted that the letter was written 5 years ago. So I don't know whether
Can
conditions have
someone state the date again? I need to reread it, and I
2017.
can't find it in.
The letter?
Yeah, when was
here.
the email? Oh, is it on the print? Okay. Thank you.
I think the spirit is, if someone approaches you in person, email, phone call, carrier pigeon, whatever, and says, I want to talk to you about an application I have turned in, we just can't talk about it. And like the email I got from a person, I just didn't respond to it.
Yeah,
So-
and that's what I did, was didn't respond.
It's a
And
small-
I was asked to pass it on to all of you guys, and I did not.
It's a small town, people run into you in the street, say, hey, I want to tell you I'm doing this and this and this, and I say, I can't talk about that until after this is over, it's just.
So for me, this, and, I may have been the one to precipitate this whole conversation, probably was, and it goes back to a situation where, that I was describing earlier in exactly those terms, and that is a person that, this was quite some time ago, had just bought a house and said, I'm thinking about A, B, and C. And, I just said, you got to read the guidelines. You have to understand what they say about, this is a deck and this is a patio and these are what's supposed to happen and this is what you should and shouldn't be able to do. And so just, read all of that. And then lo and behold, we get the application for it. And that is a situation in which I did not have enough to go on. And I said so, that I said, I cannot support this application without this very clear information. And that information was not forthcoming, and therefore I did not vote in support of that issue. So to the extent that I was the precipitant for that, those are the circumstances. Now, was it wise for me to do that?
No, I don't think this is on that, because you're talking about how you voted present.
Yes.
No, this is somebody's talk to, or like the letter that we all received. If we would have responded back to this person, then we were talking to that
I
person,
see.
and that's saying ex parte.
I see. Did I
Like
get-
Steve
I don't know if
says,
I got that.
people stop him in the street, supermarket, whatever. And this has happened to me over the years, and what I have found out best, I say, call Glenna, now it's called Kylie, is who you need to discuss this with. And if they keep on, you could listen to them a little bit, but you really should just get away. And I just turn and say, if I have to vote on this, and if you continue, I will have to recuse myself, or tell you guys, hey, so-and-so said this to me, I don't know if I should vote on this or not, and kind of see what you guys say, but maybe I will have to recuse myself, and then you might need my vote one way or the other. I don't know how things will happen at the table, and they usually will back off then. And
Yeah.
We want to educate the community, and people ask general questions all the time, and that's great. Or if I feel like they're getting too technical, so call Kylie, she'll answer your questions, I'm not sure about this. But a lot of times people say, well, I want to cut down this tree, will HDC approve it? I'm like, HDC doesn't
Yeah.
approve trees. You need to
That's
go to
planning.
planning. So stuff like that, I'm not going to say, I can't talk about that.
Yeah.
That's,
Right.
I'm referring them to who they should go to. And people ask general questions a lot
Yeah.
about roofing and, the city ever approve this? Do y'all ever approve that? And generally I'll say, this is what the guidelines say, but call Kylie. So.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is if there is a project that is going to come back before you, is going to be on an HDC agenda, you can't talk about that outside of a public meeting. You can't give an opinion, and you have to be really careful with your conversations that you're not being influenced by outside perspectives outside of the meeting. The idea of a public meeting is that all parties involved would be there and be present, and everything is transparent and open. So that's really what this reminder is about.
And everybody makes mistakes. If it happens.
And I noticed, though, on the letter,
So,
it was also directed to a lot of other people besides just us.
Right.
Yes.
So it doesn't necessarily
No.
mean that it was our commission,
No.
because it was also to city council and to planning. So it could have been any.
so that letter that was sent to all of us a few weeks back, we should never have opened it, never have read it.
I didn't know what it was till I opened
We didn't know what it was till we opened it.
Then we should never have read it.
it. I read it enough to know this is
Yeah.
something I'm not going to respond to.
I just read a line or two and deleted.
Yeah. Public comments should come through city staff and be provided to you all at the public meeting.
I'm not even going to respond to her to tell her that. but-
No. Yeah.
But
I mean,
I don't want to belabor this, but when I first joined the commission, Glenna talked with me about this ex parte. I don't know if that's the exact term that she used, but the way I interpreted it at the time was us talking to each other when we're not here in these meetings. And to me, that makes all the sense in the world. On the other hand, I thought, well, that means that if I need any additional information, there's only one person that I can go to, and I'm only going to get one person's take on it. And that, to me, doesn't seem like a perfect solution either, right? I mean, yeah, you're in the prime position for this, and you're very qualified, but I might want,
well, you could
broader
go,
view.
you could go to the mayor, too. I mean, I'm sure,
If
he would sit
you-
and talk to you.
This is supposed to be an autonomous commission.
You cannot talk to each other about an item that will be go to a vote. If you talk about it with each other outside of the meeting, that's an illegal meeting,
That's what,
an illegal meeting,
Oh,
according to,
Before the vote.
yes.
Now, after
So-
the vote, we can talk about it.
Yeah, after the vote is done, talk about it all you want. If you talk about it beforehand,
You need to recuse yourself and
both
say you did.
parties would need to excuse themselves from the vote.
that makes sense.
The thing about it's a legal pending case until the case is settled or
Yeah.
voted on,
Yeah.
then it's over and you can talk about it. So.
And that's
Just
how,
so somebody doesn't get swayed by
Yes.
one
Yeah,
person or
exactly.
another.
And I could then explain, if I wanted to explain to Marty, well, this is why I voted that way, or to anybody for that matter.
yeah,
After the
afterwards.
fact.
After the fact.
After the
Yeah.
fact.
And I like that because I want to pick someone's brain. It's like, did I miss something? Why did you vote this way? Okay.
Or I want people to understand. I want us, like you said, to be very transparent and give people as much information
Yeah.
as they want and need.
Okay.
She's my neighbor and I like her.
No, you don't get to vote that
Right.
case. Okay, number 6 was consent agenda. And Steve, you added that. You want to,
Okay, consent agenda. Since this recent case that we keep not talking about keeps coming up, I think, in my part, I feel like we missed the boat on that. When it came around on the consent agenda, I didn't catch it, that there had been a change beyond. To me, the consent agenda should be things as no changes in material, or work involving no changes in material, plus changes in roofing, paint colors, and signs. No, I'm sorry, that's administrative approval. The consent agenda to me is like, there's no change, they're just putting it back the way it is, and we just initial off on it. But this time, something came through the consent agenda, there was a change, and we didn't catch that. So I think we have a problem with the procedure, and I think, only thing I could think of to fix this, and I know it's more work for Kylie, is to put the consent agenda applications on the email packet that we get. So we, instead of having, here's this envelope, look at it real quick, put your initials on it and pass it on, that we can catch stuff like this if it happens again. And it's in the packet, we're all supposed to be reading the packet and looking at them. And that way, we say that, yep, we'll catch this, and stuff.
yeah, because
What
I
do
agree.
y'all think about that?
Understand it, we could
Yeah.
phone.
Right, because.
Because we can take
Exactly.
anything off the consent agenda and put it on the regular agenda item, but we have to kind of like, oh yeah, this is something I need to do that. It's rare, I've done it before, but it's
Yeah.
pretty rare. But I think this case that happened, I think we need to either learn and fix this problem. There's a problem with the procedure, and we need to fix it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's a way to fix it, is just, I know it's more work for Kylie, and I apologize for that, but putting it with the packet we get is have those applications listed with the pictures and stuff too, to say,
I
we can
agree.
all look them over and say, they're exactly what they're supposed to be, we're fine with it.
Because we sat here at the table, and tonight we didn't have one, but it's that blue folder, and we look real quick,
Right.
and
I feel very rushed when it comes around, because we're trying
Yeah.
to get it done before the
I've
meeting
always
starts,
felt rushed.
Yeah.
and just initial it, so.
I have one question. So I think that more items could be consent agenda, like fence replacements, things that are relatively straightforward and don't need to be belabored by a lot of discussion, even if it does involve a change. If that change is clearly in guidelines and appropriate, I think it would make sense that if I'm going to do a report on it, put it in consent agenda to expedite this process. If you have all the information beforehand, you could pull it off. But I think that that would build some efficiencies that folks are looking for, and also build efficiencies for these meetings as well.
I think that's a good idea.
I don't think the problem is with having a consent agenda. I think you're exactly right in things that are clearly obvious. I just wonder, what would be the best way from your perspective to include the application information for those things that you want to put into the consent agenda in such a way that you don't have to reprocess it all and create all of the, in other words, would this be a situation where you could just say, I'm just going to include the application as provided and trust that it's clear and simple and enough to be consent number one, and for us to just scan it number two beforehand and it to stay on the consent agenda?
Yeah, I think like a one-page executive summary of this is what they're doing and here's what they provided.
And if we feel like it should be pulled off at the table, if one of us thinks we can pull it off and then have the discussion, but I think, so we need a motion to do that then.
Okay. I move that we change the consent agenda procedure and have those applications included with our weekly packet so we can review them beforehand, and the commissioners can then take it off the consent agenda and put it on the new business if they feel appropriate.
Second.
Okay, Steve made the motion, Randy seconded. Any other discussion on this? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And then number 7, I forgot, Steve.
Public comment.
Oh,
Public comment.
Judy, you want to take this one? We talked about it a little bit, so.
I personally think we should allow public comment.
well, we do on each application, but just public comment to come down and gripe at us. But on each application, we talk about it. They have,
But I think a person having 3 minutes at the end of the meeting to come up and say, give us feedback about anything they want to talk about for 3 minutes. We don't have to respond. We definitely don't have to argue with them. We just hear them, gives them an opportunity to tell us what they're thinking. And as secretary, I'd time 3 minutes and say, it's over. Thank you very much. Don't you think?
Yep.
Because we did this a while back, and Glenn has stopped doing it. I think it's interesting that a member of the community brought it up as something she wasn't happy that it changed. It changed years ago. It's like, you haven't noticed that it changed years ago. You know, it's not like we just did this 6 months ago. It's been years ago. So if they thought it was that important, you think they would have brought it up sooner than that. But I think we want to hear from the community if they have issues and stuff. I do worry that they're going to bring up my neighbor's house, so-and-so and so-and-so, but
Yeah.
they have a right to bring up whatever they want to talk about for 3 minutes. They get cut off, and that's it. We don't have
if
to
we just let them state it and it's not
Right.
interaction with them,
Well, we have to be strong about, let's don't get into discussion,
Yeah.
let's don't get in talking about it.
I don't want to have an interaction.
On a former date in another commission, there was a big issue that arose, and that we probably had 40 people at the meeting, and 10 of them had comments, and every single one was timed to 3 minutes, and they said what they felt, and we just said thank you, and they sat down, and the next person, there was no bickering, no arguing amongst everybody, but they had what they had to state, good or bad, on file. And that's all people want to do, is to be heard. And we can, I feel personally that we should be polite enough to hear people and their comments.
Yeah.
Give them some dignity.
Along with this, I like to bring up terminology. I know it seems nitpicky, but our last meeting, I kept hearing people in the audience saying, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. We're up here asking for your permission. They kept using the word permission. I'm thinking, we are not judges.
And
We do not give permission. We are not your teacher. This is you have an application. You're an applicant. We either approve your application or we deny it. We do not give permission. And I think that's maybe nitpicky, but I think it's about the attitude, about who we are and what we do here. And I think we need to really watch the terminology to say, we're not giving people permission or turning people down for anything.
Yeah, we
except
have
an
to be really
application.
careful, because like saying something's pretty or something, we're not the pretty police. We just have to be real careful with terminology.
There's another issue.
Wait a
type
second,
of
we need to finish public comment and vote on that if that's what you want to do.
I do have one question.
Yes.
As far as public comments, do we know why we quit doing that?
The 17 years I've been on it, we've never done it.
Oh, okay.
Or Glenn had talked about it, but I heard she just thought it'd be a waste of time and would encourage people to bring in appropriate things to the meeting to talk about. And if that happens, we can talk about it again, so. We never had it? I thought we had it.
Do we need a motion on this?
Yes, if you're going to implement it, you need to make a motion to put it on.
Wasn't it ever implemented?
No, not that I know of.
I think we did have it.
Glenna was completely opposed.
But maybe we just talked about it. I move that we start including public comments. Members of the community can come and talk to us at the end of our meeting. They have 3 minutes to make a statement about anything they want to talk about, especially giving us feedback about the process. And at the end of 3 minutes, they're shut off, and that's it, just one time.
Do I have-
Second.
Okay. Discussion. I do have one thing. We have to be very careful. Do not interact. You let them make their statement. Do not respond to them, because that's back and forth. So just be very, very careful. We can't talk to them. Any other discussion? All in favor say, Steve made the motion, Judy seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Our next meeting is November 3rd, 2021. Level 3 applications due Thursday, October 21st, 2021. Level 2 applications due Wednesday, October 27th, 2021. And before we go into commissioner comments, I guess, does anybody have something they want to put on for commission business next time? Because you started to bring up something, Marty,
Well, I started to bring up,
but we should put it on the next time.
okay, so I don't say what I...
Yeah, tell Kylie so she can add it to the agenda.
The types of applications that come in have to be, they can't be, for example, on a piece of paper saying this fence will be about 6 feet tall. They have to be more definitive.
Not to exceed, things like that.
And we have to have elevations. I mean, not everybody knows how to read a drawing, and I think that's where a lot of confusion comes in. And at one point, we had determined that that an application had to have...
Well, I think we have that
drawing,
now.
But they don't. I've seen many applications come in with a square and 6 feet, 3 feet, 2.5 feet, and, that's not, to me, that's not permissible. They have
If
to
you
be
can't-
legitimate drawings.
If you can't infer from the information what you need to infer
Yes.
in order to support the application, then you can't support the application.
Correct.
Correct. So I don't know if that's something we need to discuss at the next time, because it's kind of,
You just did.
yeah, you just did it. Okay, and I think it's kind of already there, so.
But it's not.
Well, we get lazy about that.
I know, we do. I think I think that's perfect, Randy. We've gotten lazy about it, and it is there, so we need to go back to the book and look at it, guys. Okay, commissioner comments. Judy?
No comments?
Randy?
Just happy to be here.
Yay, we're glad you're here.
Really?
Steve?
Great, I'm glad it's fall. I love the weather.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Second.
Kyle?
No comment.
No.
Marty, no. No, I'm glad for the cooler weather a little bit, but not, today was a perfect day.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Steve made the motion to adjourn, Randy seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? 5-0 carries.